Hello and welcome to Thursday Lives with Chugh. My name is Neha Mahajan. I'm the Business Development and Outreach Manager here at Chugh LLP Attorneys and CPAs. I'm sitting here in Edison, New Jersey, and joining me from Atlanta office today are Associate Attorney Bethany Mowery and our Paralegal Andrea Mora-Alcauter. Welcome, ladies.
Hi, Neha. Thank you.
Hi, Neha. Thank you for having us.
Hi. Yes, thankfully we are all on the East Coast, but a very warm good morning to everybody who's joining us from the West Coast as well. Today we're going to be talking about the EB-5 visa, investor's visa. What is it? What is this whole, thing about the EB-5 visa? American Dream brings thousands and thousands of immigrants to this land of possibilities every single year. While most people come on family-based visas, some come on diversity, asylum, employment-based visas. There are millionaires out there who believe in the American dream, who believe in the possibility of making it big here in the United States of America. And they're ready to invest in the American economy. And through the EB-5 visa program, this is exactly what they get to do. They get to invest in American economy. Also, it becomes a clear route to permanent residency in the United States of America for not just themselves, but for their spouse and kids under the age of 21 years. All they have to do is make an investment and create jobs. Looks like a win-win situation for everybody, right? But it's not that easy, right? And there is a minimum requirement of 500,000 US dollars. This is the amount of investment that one must make. This is set to change also. It's no longer going to be 500,000, or maybe it will remain 500,000. We will know in a few weeks from today. But before I delve more into it, I really want to ask you, Bethany, what is EB-5 visa? All right, I want you to tell our audience about it. Who applies for it? Why are people interested in the EB-5 visa?
Thanks, Neha. So the program was created by Congress in 1990. It was meant to help stimulate the economy, as you said, create jobs, and it was really designed for foreign investors and entrepreneurs that wanted to attain permanent residency here and wanted to invest in a new commercial enterprise here in the U.S. They're able to apply. Foreign investors, they can apply as long as they meet those requirements you were talking about. There's a minimum investment amount that's required, and that can also depend on where you're investing, the location, and then there's also a job creation requirement. But that's the basics of what the program was created for and the kind of investor, kind of person that would apply for this program.
Yeah, and we know the investment amount of $500,000 is set to change. What is the investment amount actually needed to apply for an EB-5 visa as of now?
As of today, under the current rule, the minimum is $500,000 in a targeted employment area and $1 million for a non-targeted employment area.
Okay.
And as you were saying, Neha,
No.
you were talking about those numbers increasing. They actually did increase. Back in July 2019, there was the new modernization rule that increased those numbers from 500 to 900,000 for a targeted employment area. We call those TEAs. And then 1.8 million for a non-TEA. That rule went into effect in July 2019, but it was struck down by a California district court just a few months ago in June 2021. So those numbers, the 900 and 1.8, are no longer in effect as of today. The rules prior to July 2019 are what we're applying, which is the 500,000 and the 1 million. That's as of today, February 10th, 2022. Those numbers can change, as you were saying. There's talks about new legislation and all of this, and I know we'll get into that in a little bit, but just wanted to talk about the numbers did go up for a short period of time. They are back down to that 501 million as of today, but that could change in the coming days and weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you talked about TEA, targeted employment areas. Yeah, Andrea, I want you to delve into it and tell us, what is this T or targeted employment area all about?
So the TEA, it's either a rural area or a non-rural rural area with high unemployment. at the time of the investment. Rural TA designation is easy to determine. They are usually cities and towns that are outside of the metropolitan areas with a population of less than 20,000 people, and also do not border a city or town with more than the same 20,000 people. High unemployment areas are more difficult to determine, and typically they look at the unemployment rates of that specific census using government data.
Okay, all right. So, the investors who are coming to apply for this visa, the EB-5 visa, they may have funds in various forms, right? It could be, might not be the actual dollar amount sitting in a bank somewhere, but it could be spread out in various forms, right? In way of capital. What are the acceptable forms of capital to fund this investment and meet the, investment criteria? Bethany, if you could get into it, please.
Yeah, so the capital in an EB-5 context is actually defined in the Code of Federal Regulations, and they give 6 categories. It can be cash, cash equivalents, inventory, equipment, other tangible property, and indebtedness secured by assets. So it's kind of a broad range of different kinds of things that can be considered capital. There are some caveats that are required. The immigrant investor must be the owner, and foreign assets and capital, that's allowed, that's acceptable for an EB-5 context, but the foreign assets and funds will be valued in US dollars at fair market value at the time the petition is filed. So that's important to do those conversions because, it's always changing. Sometimes the dollar's strong, sometimes the dollar's weak. So you'll need to look into that. We have a lot of clients that ask us about loans or promissory notes. Can that be sufficient? And they can. There are specific requirements that the loan or the note will need to meet. So that's something that you'll want to talk to your attorney about. If you have specific questions, feel free to reach out to us after this live. It gets a little bit more complex. We don't have time to get into it today. Yeah. And then the last thing to note as well is that the funds must be derived from a lawful source. And you think that would be obvious. You can't do anything illegal. You can't use illegal means to obtain the money. But it's important because that unlawful requirement can be directly or indirectly sourced. So even if you've acquired the funds lawfully, let's say, for example, it was a gift or an inheritance from a family member, friend, someone, that's lawful to you. It was gifted to you. You inherited that money. But if the person who donated that, the donor in that case, if they had obtained the funds unlawfully, whether you were aware or not, that capital will not meet the definition for EB-5. So it's important to know that because when you file, you're going to have to provide proof of the lawful source of all of your capital. So that's something to note that, yeah, of course, I didn't derive anything unlawfully, but you don't know where did you get that money from? Is there a lawful trail you can follow for the capital?
Yeah, that's a very important point you pointed out here, Bethany. You could have money, saved up in form of cash somewhere. You could have been saving for years together, but unless you can prove that money was acquired lawfully, that will not count as capital towards this particular investment. Thank you for mentioning that, Bethany. And I just want to tell our audience, we are live. We are live on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. We come live every Thursday, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific time zone. And today we're talking about EB-5 investment visa. Who qualifies for that? What are the caveats? What kind of an investment does one need? What kind of a capital? Where to source that capital from? What is the legal way of sourcing the capital? And why do you need an attorney? We'll be talking about all of this in detail. So hang on tight. Also want to mention really quickly, the discussion that we are having today is for informational purposes only. This discussion does not create an attorney-client relationship. If you have a specific case that you want our attorneys to look into, well, you can send us an email, info@chugh.com, or you could send us a question here in the comment section, and we'll try to answer those questions live for you, like we always do every week. So moving on, Bethany, you mentioned that there could be something called capital at risk, right? Could you tell me in detail, what does that actually mean?
Yeah, so your capital must be at risk the entire time your petition is pending for EB-5. Simply put, at risk just means that there's a risk you lose that capital and also a possibility of gain. So one of the things clients ask us about is if they can invest in something or start something where they're going to have a guaranteed rate of return, or possibly a portion of their capital invested in a project is guaranteed to be returned to them. That's not at risk. So any portion of an investment that you're guaranteed to get back would have to be deducted from those minimum investment requirements. So you want to make sure that that's not the terms of any project you're investing in. Also, the entire investment amount, whether it's the 500 million, if new numbers come out, whatever the number is going to be, that entire capital investment has to be fully available to the commercial enterprise. So if you have some of it set aside for you to use, possibly, that's not going to be considered at risk. You have to put it all towards that business. And if at any time the business needed it for whatever reason, they would have to be able to obtain those funds quickly, not from your own personal accounts or things like that. So that at risk really just means simply there's a risk you could lose all of your money. And there's also the possibility that you could gain and make a lot of money, but there's no guarantee for either of those.
Yeah. So basically, all the money that you're putting in must be put into one investment. You cannot have it scattered, as probably using it for yourself or some other sorts of funds for, other operations. It has to be fully invested into that particular business, right?
Exactly. It has to be at risk the entire time. That at any time you could lose your entire investment if the business fails.
All right. And that's a risk we will talk about, right? What happens if everything is at stake if the business runs? What if the business doesn't run? We're going to talk about it in detail. But Andrea, historically, EB-5 petitioners could make an investment in one of the two ways, right? It could either be a direct investment or a regional center investment. And I think I've heard more about regional center investment than direct investment. Is one advantageous over the other? Should people choose between one or other while making this investment?
So both direct and regional center investments require the same amount of capital and also the creation of 10 jobs. Direct investments are typically done through owner-operated businesses, franchises, or investment in larger companies or projects. Direct investments required the creation of the 10 jobs. Regional centers are organizations that are pre-approved by the U.S. government that would sponsor projects and solicit investments. The process to invest through a regional center was more complex, but traditionally seen as safer and would allow indirect jobs to count towards the 10 job threshold. So, right. However, the status of the RC program or regional center program is up in the air right now. So direct investments are presently the only option.
All right. That's quite insightful for anybody who's trying to, make a decision about where to invest. Well, I think direct investment, like Andrea mentioned, is the way to go for that. Andrea, you mentioned that to qualify for EB-5, you must have 10 jobs, right? The business must create 10 jobs. Now, these will have to be full-time employees, part-time employees, consultants, contractors. Like, how do you identify the 10 jobs?
So you want them to be full-time employees with W-2s. So subcontractors, on 1099s would probably not be advisable.
Okay. So that's something we should. Yeah, Bethany.
Sorry to interrupt. We're all live here in different areas. So, but like Andrea said, it's full time. But a lot of times people think full time is 40 hours. For EB-5, it needs to be at least 35 hours. So full time still, but doesn't have to be 40 hours for every employee. 35 is sufficient. But like Andrea said, they need to be employees, not subcontractors, not independent contractors. These need to be your employees, and your family members also don't count. So if you're filing for your spouse and your children, maybe they're 18, if they're working for you, they don't count towards that employee threshold. It's important to note that as well.
All right. Thanks for bringing that point out, Bethany. Andrea, coming back to the regional center program, what is the status of this program right now? You mentioned it's up in the air. What does that really mean?
So There may be changes to it. Presently, I believe they're going. Well, actually, Bethany, you could probably.
Yeah, Bethany, why don't you?
Yeah, no, that's fine.
More about it. Yeah.
That's fine. The Regional Center program was authorized by Congress. That authorization expired in June 2021, and it hasn't yet been renewed. So it's been about 6+ months now, more than that, almost 8, where the Regional Center program has not been authorized by Congress. So any applications filed under a Regional Center have been kind of put on hold. There are talks that the Regional Center program is going to be reauthorized by Congress. They have the authority to do that, but nothing is concrete right now. Congress has to act on that before people can file under Regional Center programs again. So right now, most people aren't looking into those options. They're really looking towards the direct investments.
Yeah, and we all know when it comes to Congress and immigration, that's not a good mix. It takes forever for Congress to come up with anything, any reform related to immigration. So I hope there's clarity soon on this project and these programs, because there are actual lives, waiting to get on with their lives. I want to talk to you about direct investment process. How does that work?
So direct investments, they're typically done through owner-operated businesses, franchises, or investments in larger companies or projects, which is, direct investments is actually what we're going to be focusing on today. So the first step would be to set up your new commercial enterprise by forming your company in the state of your choosing. Ideally, the state would be where you're going to be operating business, the business itself. The company could be any partnership, limited liability company, corporation, whatever is, based on your business needs. And something that you should consult with your attorney or business advisors, because really this is going to be the foundation of your EB-5, right? You want all of your corporate documents to be straight.
Yeah, no, that's really important. And that's exactly why you should talk to an attorney and make sure your paperwork is complete, and in a proper way. There are a bunch of questions that are coming to me in my mind right now. But before I get into them, I just want to make it very obvious. We are live right now. I'm sitting here in Edison, and Associate Attorney Bethany Mowery is joining us from Atlanta office. Our paralegal from Atlanta office is Andrea Mora-Alcauter, and we are talking about the EB-5 investment program, the EB-5 visa. We're talking a lot in detail about who qualifies, what does it take to qualify for this visa, how to proceed, and what to be cautious about. So if you have any questions, feel free to send it to us in the comment section. We're live right now on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And if you're watching a recorded version, feel free to send us an email, info@chugh.com. That's our email. And this discussion is for informational purposes only. This does not create a client and attorney relationship. Like I said, info@chugh.com. That's your best friend right now. So the questions that I want to go into, and I think, Bethany, I'll start with you. Like any immigration process, this will require a lot of paperwork. What kind of documentation does one need to provide? And does one need a business plan?
Yeah, so before you file anything with USCIS, you definitely want to get your business plan put together. It's very important to have a detailed business plan. You should hire a professional or an expert who does this regularly. I would not advise relying on your attorney or a colleague or a friend who says they can do it unless they have experience. The plan should be very comprehensive and provide an overview of your business. It needs to have growth projections, financial analysis, job creation expectations, market data. All of these things need to be included in a very detailed plan that you're going to submit to USCIS, which is why you want to use somebody who has experience in drafting these. You're going to need other documentation we spoke about earlier a little bit regarding your capital, your funds, showing the lawful source of those funds. And then a lot of just of your regular identity documentation, verification that you usually submit to USCIS with any kind of application. Those are kind of the bulk of documents you want to get together before you even start filing with USCIS.
All right. And what kind of forms are required by USCIS? Andrea?
So it's Form I-526. You have to file that with all of your supporting documents and evidence.
Okay. All right. And is that the only form that's needed?
Yeah, that's the only form that's required by USCIS.
Oh, fantastic. So you really just need one form and probably a bunch of paperwork to support that form, right? All the
the form itself, it's quite extensive, and you do have to have, the information to fill it out correctly.
Right. And obviously, because it's a form and it's important, you must have an attorney to go over it and to tell you, because even a smallest small mistake, can throw the application off, and there can be either a rejection or an RFE. Am I right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So, Bethany, one question that comes to everybody's mind when they land in United States of America, no matter on what visa, right? And this question is, when do I get my green card? Right? That's the question that's on the mind of those who are coming on family-based visas. That's the question on the mind of those coming on diversity, asylum, employment-based visas. And I'm pretty sure same thing goes for EB-5 category too. So I'm imagining that because there's so much money involved in the whole process and you're creating jobs for America, investing in American economy, the process would be faster. Is that so?
So yes and no, depending on who you are and what your other options are. So you do qualify for a green card through the EB-5 by filing your I-526. You have to file your petition first. The processing for that can vary. Right now, it's about 36 to 58 months. So 3 to 5 years, depending. That's just for your petition. You can't file for your green card until after your 526 is approved. Once your 526 is approved, you can file for adjustment if you're here in the US, or if you're abroad, you can file for an immigrant visa. Once you file for that, then you get your green card. The reason this can be faster, particularly for Indian foreign nationals, is because once your 526 petition is approved, even if that takes 3 to 5 years, once that's approved, as of today, all countries are current on the priority date on the visa bulletin for EB-5. So for somebody like an Indian national who may have a path to a green card through EB-2, EB-3, they have a long waiting period, which is only going to get longer. Everybody's talking about the backlog for these individuals. An EB-5 is a much quicker option. It's still not quick. It could take, I would say, 5 to 8 years, sometimes even 10 years for the entire process. But the good thing is, once your petition is approved, at least right now, your priority date is current. So you can file for your green card immediately, unlike in some other categories. Now, the priority dates can change. The visa bulletin comes out every month. If the priority dates do regress again, they're not likely going to regress at the rate of those other categories. So particularly for Indian investors and foreign nationals, if you qualify, the EB-5 is a great option. Some other individuals, it may be better to look into other avenues that may be quicker. So it really depends on who you are. When you ask, is this quicker? Depends on a lot of factors. But right now, based on processing times, particularly for Indian nationals, it's something that they should consider if it's an option for them.
Yeah, right. We know about that. You literally hit the nail on the coffin there, Bethany, because processing times for EB-2 and EB-3 categories, we all know where that is right now. And in EB-5, foreign nationals, especially those born in India, if you want to qualify for EB-5, well, you must have at least $500,000 in your pocket to invest completely directly into this category. And then you must create 10 jobs, full-time employments, right? 35 hours per week. And that doesn't sound easy for someone transitioning probably from an EB-2, EB-3 category into being an investor or an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah, it's not always easy. I mean, that's the hardest part is getting the money. If everyone could get the investment, then everyone could do this. And then if that would actually slow down the process a lot, because there's a certain number of visas that are designated for this category. So there's a reason they have those thresholds for the monetary amount. Otherwise, everyone would do it.
Right. And, we're in the last 6 minutes of our program today, of our discussion today. And there are more questions that I quickly want to go get into. Just want to reiterate, we are live on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. We're talking about the EB-5 Investors Visa. If you have any questions, send them to us live here in the comment section or write to us, info@chugh.com. Andrea, Bethany spoke about the backlogs, right? I have heard of delays in getting green card, even in the EB-5 category, right? How true are these details? I was reading a Forbes article on it.
Well, there are USCIS delays right now, not just in EB-5, practically in every single petition that's being filed. And a lot of it has to do with COVID. We're seeing a lot of COVID delays. A lot of processing centers were closed. A lot of their personnel still working from home. So this has caused significant delays among every single petition, out there. Of course, you have some exceptions, but again, this seems to be the pattern for just about all of it.
Yeah, so if you are an EB-5 investor or thinking of making an investment in the EB-5 category, remember that there could be delays that are beyond anybody's control at this point in time. And if you have a kid who would age out at the age of 21, your kid might not qualify for the green card petition, that you are hoping to get through your EB-5 petition. So my question here is for you, Bethany. Once the green card is issued, right, no matter how long it takes, does it ever expire for the EB-5 category? And if it does expire, what are the next steps? When does one become a citizen here?
So in an EB-5 category, you're going to get a conditional green card. So after your petition's approved, after you file for either adjustment or an immigrant visa, and you get your green card, it's only going to be a 2-year conditional card, which means you have to file another form with USCIS within 90 days before your 2-year green card expires. So you file another form to remove those conditions. And then once that's approved, you'll finally have your 10-year green card. With your 10-year card, you're eligible for citizenship after you're a resident for 5 years. And that includes that 2-year conditional period. There are some exceptions there if you're married to a U.S. citizen, things like that. It can be a smaller time frame where you have to be a resident, but for most individuals, you need to be a permanent resident for 5 years before you can apply for citizenship. But you can apply for citizenship if you get your green card through EB-5.
Right. So see, these are the caveats that are commonly not talked about. And this is why we go live every week so that, we can create some informational content for you all. And if you're thinking of EB-5 investments, well, these are some of the pointers that you must know. Now, Bethany, the entire premise of EB-5 Investors Visa is setting up a business and making sure it is successful. But what happens when it fails? And we're in the last 3 minutes of our discussion right now. So let's quickly talk about this.
Yeah, so it's fine if your business isn't successful at first. That's very common. New businesses struggle. If you don't make a profit or you make very little profit, that's fine. The issue comes if your business fails where you cease operations. That can cause a lot of problems depending on when it happens. So we don't need to get into all the specifics, but you should plan on your business. If you start a new business for EB-5 purposes, you should plan on operating that for at least 7 years, if not more, and be successful enough that you can continue to operate and create those jobs. You don't have to be making a lot of money, but you have to make enough to be able to employ people, keep your operations running, and make sure you can get through this whole process without the business failing.
Yeah, I'm sure people who are watching us are thinking, I wish there were an easier way to get permanent residency in the United States of America with all that money they're going to put right over the years. It's all going to add up. But there's no easier way. And EB-5 category, although it's very lucrative, it has its caveats, it has its issues. But if you're looking to invest and if you are looking to get permanent residency in the United States of America, this seems like a slightly easier way than, say, employment-based categories, provided you have the money. Bethany and Andrea, thank you so much for all your expertise today. I still have a lot of questions that I need answers to, but I guess we're running out of time right now. But thank you so much for all your expertise, and thank you for joining us from Atlanta. And all of you who are watching us, thank you for joining us and for watching us and sending in your questions. If you have more questions, I'm sorry we couldn't take them live today, but if you have questions, info@chugh.com, that's where you should be sending your questions to, and we'll make sure that we answer them and get to the consult that you require if you're thinking of an EB-5 investment. We'll see you next week with another attorney or maybe a CPA. I don't know that yet, but if you want to find out, subscribe to all our channels, platforms here on social media, and you'll be in the know. See you next week. Take care. Goodbye.